My name is Dariush Mozaffarian. I'm the Dean of the Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy at Tufts University. There are really many potential benefits to health of seafood consumption. It's really one of the most important foods for general health. Many things have been studied, including brain health, the immune function, heart health, and many other conditions. But probably the strongest evidence is actually for heart health and for brain development in babies during infancy. For heart health, it's pretty clear that eating some fish is really important, much better than none. And so eating at least 2 servings a week of fish has been linked to substantially lower risk of death from heart disease. Heart attacks kill more Americans than any other cause of death, and that's true for both men and for women. And eating fish reduces that risk substantially. That's been seen in many long-term observational studies. So, really that should be one of the priorities for health in America, is trying to get all Americans to eat fish, at least a couple of servings per week. The other really major health benefit that's well established of fish consumption is brain health in babies. And so, there's been concern about mercury in fish, and it's true that a handful of fish species have significant amounts of mercury. But the vast majority of fish species have little to no mercury, and the US EPA and FDA recommend that pregnant women eat about 2 servings of fish per week as well. And really there are many healthy options for women who are pregnant to choose from. The reason that's so important is that DHA, one of the omega-3 fatty acids in fish, is required for healthy brain development, for optimal brain development. And so both observational studies and really carefully done intervention studies show that women that have more omega-3s from seafood, their babies' brains develop more optimally. And so that's really another key benefit. And so, dying from heart disease, the #1 cause of death, and optimal brain development in babies are 2 of the best established benefits of fish consumption. Put all together, really, this is one of nature's best foods for health. One of the most important things that we can recommend to people for public health and for their own health. So, in speaking about the health effects, many things that people often ask are, what's the difference between lean fish versus fatty fish? What's the difference between eating fish versus taking fish oil? What's the difference between seafood omega-3s versus plant omega-3s? And what's the difference between farmed versus wild caught fish? Those are all questions that people ask. I think that it's pretty clear that omega-3s are part of the benefit of fish intake. Probably not all of the benefit, but a big part of the benefit. So again, if you're choosing between 2 fish, having one with more omega-3s, a dark meat fish, is probably a better option. But either is a better option than no fish. And so I would tend to suggest that people have dark meat fish at least once per week, but any fish is better than none. And then one of the questions I'm often asked is about farmed versus wild fish or other seafood. And so, I think that's really mostly a question of environmental concerns potentially. There are environmental concerns to some wild fishing practices. There are environmental concerns to some aquaculture practices. There's some wild fishing practices that are sustainable, and there's some aquaculture practices that are sustainable. And so we clearly need to increase sustainable aquaculture and increase sustainable wild fishing, because fish is such an important resource for health and for the environment. In terms of health, there's really not a major difference between aquaculture or wild-caught fish. In fact, it's often kind of a false choice. But I think that issue of farm versus wild is really, in the end, we want to have sustainable fishing practices, whether it's aquaculture or wild. So, if we want Americans to consume at least 2 servings of fish per week, how are we doing? Pretty poorly compared to that goal, compared to that metric. Very roughly, about 1/3 of Americans eat no fish at all. About 1/3 have considerably less than 2 servings per week, and maybe 1/3 are getting close to 1 or 2 servings per week or more. So at least 2/3 of the population is not consuming enough fish. And so that's really an important health goal. So I think one of the unfortunate things that's happened in the last decade is that concern over mercury in fish has sort of led to widespread confusion and in fact fear about fish consumption. And I think that's an unintended consequence of what the government was trying to do with the Mercury advisory. A Mercury advisory came out in 2004 from the US government, which was really intended for just pregnant women or women who are trying to become pregnant, to really get them to eat fish, but to limit just a few species that have higher mercury. And that's really to protect the health of the baby's brain. And that very focused advisory sort of led to widespread confusion about fish and contaminants, and led people to think that mercury is in all fish or that mercury is harmful for adults, which in the doses that it's found in commercial fish, there's really no evidence that it has any effect, and led to a lot of confusion. And so, you know, the U.S. government has said that we want Americans to consume fish, and really it's just pregnant women or women who may become pregnant or are nursing to avoid a handful of fish species. So, you know, I think mercury for the average consumer who isn't trying to become pregnant or planning to become pregnant, mercury is really not a major issue from commercial fish species. The U.S. Dietary Guidelines in 2010 for the first time, you know, specified 2 servings of fish intake per week for all Americans. The American Heart Association has made 2 servings of fish per week a priority for health. The World Health Organization recommends a minimum amount of omega-3, seafood omega-3 intake for all adults, and particularly for women who may be trying to become pregnant. So we're falling pretty short of the goals, and so it's very important that we popularize and make people understand the health benefits of fish consumption, and that we also increase access for all Americans. So I think the government should really be doing as much as it can to help Americans buy fish products and make it more affordable, whether that's helping on the production side, helping on the retail side, providing benefits in programs such as SNAP, the food stamps program, such as they've done for fruits and vegetables to really encourage consumption.